Hello and welcome to Just Jets episode number 171. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, going to be hanging out with you. We have a lot to get into today. I know it's usually a quiet time in the NFL right now, May and June. Quieter, but July is going to come soon, and that'll ramp things up a little bit with training camp coming. And next thing you know, it is time for the NFL season. As of when I'm recording this, I always record on Tuesday for a Wednesday post. It's 100 days to the NFL season starts. So, you're going to get there eventually. We're going to make it there. Everything is going to be okay. It's some of my favorite things when we get to the NFL season. But I don't want to wish the summer away. Moral of the story, we have a lot to get into today. But before we do that, friends, family, loved ones, watchers of the channel, or listeners of the podcast, I bet you haven't purchased your Father's Day gift. I know I haven't. Not to fear, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming are here. I'm talking about our friends over at Manscaped. They're saving the day yet again with the total package for the father figure in your life this year. It's time to upgrade his game from waist to face with this exclusive offer. Have him join the now 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get 20% off and free shipping with my code JETS20. That is JETS20 for 20% off and free shipping. Take care of your father or your father figure. Get him something nice. All right, let's hop into the episode for today. I am excited to get into it. First, the topic of the day, first topic of the conversation will be Joe Douglas, actually, and where he ranks amongst the best general managers in the sport. So NBC Sports Edge put out an article ranking the best general managers in the sport from worst to first. And first is coming in at number 1, not a huge surprise. Howie Roseman has done a phenomenal job with the Philadelphia Eagles. Worst on the list is Nick Caserio. Really not a surprise there. He ranks 30 because the new hires, it's not really fair to judge them. They haven't done anything yet, or haven't given you enough, rather, I guess is the better way of saying it, to give you a legitimate sample size of what they are going to be as GMs at this level. But if you're curious where Joe Douglas ranks, they have him at essentially league average, 15th in the NFL, which I think is fair. I'm good with 15. I think an average GM is about fair for Joe Douglas. He has done a lot of things well, and he's also made some mistakes. Here's what they have to say on Joe Douglas. At first, the Jets were a coach away, so they hired Robert Saleh. Then they were a quarterback away, so they acquired Aaron Rodgers. Now they are 8-9 season away from Joe Douglas losing his job if Gang Green doesn't deliver in 2023. The biggest move of Douglas's 4-year Jets career has taken the training wheels off his front office. No more being graded on the Adam Gase curve. Douglas set the stage with a smashing 2022 draft, where his first-round selections of Sauce and Garrett Wilson turned into a pair of Rookie of the Year awards. It was a necessary corrective on a 2021 offseason that saw Douglas stake his future to Zach Wilson's unproven college past. That pick is one of the biggest NFL disasters of the past 5 years, one that would have doomed nearly any other front office. That it didn't in New York is something of a miracle for Douglas, but his past 2 springs have proven the benefit of the rarest NFL virtues, patience. Douglas's process has this roster on the verge of something great. Now all that is left are the results or a pink slip. That's pretty much been my stance on Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh at this point. Now, I know Saleh's going into his 3rd year, and him and Joe Douglas aren't necessarily on the same timeline because you had a Douglas overlap with Adam Gase at the end of his tenure with the New York Jets. But I think it is, without saying, a huge year for both Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. You have to go in with a legitimate, tangible step, which is making the playoffs with this team. You cannot miss the playoffs. As they say, 8-9 would be a disaster. They had that nice step up in the right direction, going from a 4-win team to a 7-win team. And obviously things did not end well in the final 6 games of the 2022 season. But there is zero reason for Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh to get a pass if they don't do the thing that they need to do this season, which is at an absolute floor make the playoffs. I think most people's expectation is for this team to win 11 or 12 games. I think that's where I see a lot of predictions. I've seen predictions as low as 9 or 10 wins. I think that's a little bit on the pessimistic side when looking at this 2023 Jets team. I've seen win predictions as high as 13 or 14. I think that's probably a little too optimistic. I think it probably falls somewhere in the middle. And if this Jets team and Aaron Rodgers win 11 or 12 games, make the playoffs, win a playoff game too, or hopefully more. We're hoping they win 3+, right? And are in a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, then that's obviously the goal. But the absolute bare minimum for Douglas is making the playoffs. Anything less than that would be an unmitigated disaster. If they are 9-8 and are on the outside looking in, that's not enough to say, oh, well, yeah, at least you're over 500. That is not enough. And there's pressure on this team, but there's time for there to be pressure on this team. And we've talked about it all off season long. You're probably tired of hearing me say this, but now is the time for them to get aggressive. I like what Joe Douglas has done, building some of the youth here. For instance, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, adding and supplementing your roster with veterans to go along with that young core, because now is your opportunity to win before you have to pay all these guys. The thing that stinks about the NFL is the salary cap, and you have to be within a certain range. You can't just go out and spend, endless amounts of money and just sign every single player. You have to make difficult decisions of who you're going to cut, who you're going to decide to give an extension to, who you're going to have to potentially trade down the line. But for Joe Douglas right now, his job is to maximize a winning window in the next 2 to 3 years, which is the assumption that is how long Aaron Rodgers is going to be around. There's a chance it could be just a one and done year. I would put that as a very slim chance. I think 2 is probably the most likely scenario for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, with maybe, if things go right and Aaron Rodgers is really going scorched earth, then you get a 3rd year out of Aaron Rodgers, and that would be great. But I was curious because we talked about it not on Just Jets, but there was an article ranking the coaches in the NFL from the 33rd team. And Robert Saleh came in at 27. 25, the 7th worst head coach in the league. I had him at 22. So I'm a slightly more optimistic. For Joe Douglas, I think 15 is fair. I think he is right about a middle of the pack GM. Some GMs in front of him, Chris Greer of the Dolphins at 14, Brad Holmes of the Lions at 13, Jerry Jones at 12, Eric DeCosta with the Ravens at 11, Mickey Loomis of the Saints at 10, John Schneider of the Seahawks at 9, Brian Gutekunst of the Packers, there we go, which is interesting. I think that maybe is a little optimistic. Belichick at 7. That might be a little high for him at this point as a GM, not a coach, but as a GM. McVay and Les Snead are 6. Duke Tobin and Mike Brown of the Bengals are 5. Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane of the Bills are 4. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch at 3. Andy Reid, Brett Veach at 2. And number 1, as I mentioned, Howie Roseman. So maybe you could talk me up to, I think 13 is probably the highest that I would go for Joe. Maybe bump him up a couple spots, but somewhere just outside the top 10 to middle of the pack, I think is more than fair with Joe Douglas. And again, if winning, I said it with Robert, if they start winning games and start winning playoff games, and this next crop of the draft from the 2023 draft class comes in and performs well, I'm not saying 2022 well, that's such an outlier, but it's just a solid draft class, then there's a chance that they can even go up higher on this list. But I thought that was an interesting article, an interesting exercise in the offseason to rank and just take a look at where the Jets are. And, I can't say that it's not surprising that Joe Douglas ranks higher than Robert Saleh on a lot of these lists, because with Douglas, they'll point to that last year's draft class in 2022 and to some of those trades, which I think are absolutely worthy of the praise, where Robert Saleh, the record on the field is put more on Saleh than it is on Douglas. And I don't know if that's necessarily right or wrong. I think both should be held to a standard that they need to be a playoff team this year. But for whatever reason, I think from both the fans' perspective and also the national media, I think Douglas has a little bit of a longer leash than Robert Saleh at this time. And the perspective, I guess, is a little bit higher. More people are higher on Joe Douglas than they are on Robert Saleh. So that was an interesting discussion and something that I wanted to get into. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, so Aaron Rodgers, this past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, made his MetLife Stadium debut. And it was not in a Jets uniform. Instead, it was at the Taylor Swift concert. The Eras Tour made its way to MetLife Stadium. And I'm sure you saw the videos and the clips going around of Aaron Rodgers. Well, so first this started with a video. I guess it was leading up to the tour coming to MetLife Stadium where the Jets play earlier in the week. And they asked Rodgers what his favorite Taylor Swift, or they asked the team what their favorite Taylor Swift song was. And Rodgers' answer, he had a full in-depth answer. It wasn't just like, I don't know, pick the biggest radio hit, Shake It Off or whatever, even though there was video of him dancing to that song. But he went in. He is, now I'm going to forget the name of the album that he said. Folklore, I believe, that was the name of the album that he talks about. August was his favorite song off that album. But he proved that he is a fan and went not once but twice. He went to 2 of the 3 shows at MetLife, and the videos of him dancing went viral, which was funny. But then there was also a point in the show where there confetti's fallen, and it's a video of him, and he's like, "Oh, the Jets won the Super Bowl," playing if they won and the confetti is fallen, which I'm sure that people are going to run with and say is such a terrible thing. Kind of like the video of, I believe, it was in spring training of the Mets play celebrating after a practice or a training session, and that video went viral. But I think, I don't know, let him have fun. It was a silly video. It's not like he's going out there saying that I'm predicting the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl, but I don't know. It is what it is, and the game wouldn't be at MetLife anyway. So I don't know. Confetti coming down. He's in MetLife. I don't mind him, saying what he said there. But I did think it was funny that Aaron Rodgers' first appearance as a New York Jet in MetLife Stadium was for a Taylor Swift show. Now, could they have brought him there and showed him, gave him a tour? I guess so. I feel like if they did that, don't you think that would have been on socials with the video team? Aaron Rodgers walking out into the field. I feel like we haven't seen that. We obviously got the video of him walking into the facility and the Jets sweatshirt and the whole day of the press conference and all that. We saw all those videos. We got all that stuff, but we haven't, up until this point, seen Aaron Rodgers walking out onto the field at MetLife Stadium. He was on the floor, but it's for Taylor Swift, which is just so funny. Again, and not really a huge a football storyline per se, but was a really good or funny thing with a couple of viral videos thrown in the mix there. So love that. I'm sure if you have a sister or girlfriend or wife, you've heard about the Eras Tour, or if you're just on the internet in general. Both my sister and my girlfriend went to the Philly show a few weeks ago. So I've heard about this tour nonstop for months. So it finally coming through MetLife Stadium and Aaron Rodgers there. You finally got the Jets and Taylor Swift crossover there. So we had something to talk about at the dinner table where our lives crossed together with the Rodgers and Taylor Swift stuff, which is just things you absolutely love to see. I want to bring back, we did it a little bit last week where we played some clips, some audio files. So I'm going to bring the segment back, audio files, before we get to the voicemails. A couple of storylines that I wanted to get into. The first clip that I'll play is of Chris Canty. Chris Canty of ESPN. He was on Get Up, and this was from earlier today. And he is speaking about Aaron Rodgers in a GOAT conversation. Let's play the clip and react to it. Here's how Chris Canty believes that Aaron Rodgers can put himself in a GOAT conversation.
Thinking about this weekend. Where does he rank for you among all-time NFL quarterbacks?
Oh, he's in that GOAT conversation. He's absolutely in the GOAT conversation, top 5 quarterbacks of all time. And here's the thing, guys. You got to have multiple championships to be there, right? You're talking about Tom Brady. You're talking about Joe Montana. You're talking about Peyton Manning. You're talking about John Elway. Hell, you're talking about Pat Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers ain't there. He's only won 1 chip, only been to 1 Super Bowl. If he would be able to exercise those demons, in his words, keep that Lombardi Trophy case at Florham Park from being so lonely and add another one to it, then yeah, all of a sudden we're talking about the 4-time MVP being in the conversation for the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
So I feel like that was a little bit of a cop-out because the GOAT conversation, to me, there is no way that any play, and I'm sure people said this about Joe Montana, but I'll say it about Brady. I don't think there is any way that someone is going to surpass what Tom Brady did in his career with the amount of championships he won and the individual accolades is just absolutely unheard of. And to play at a high level for as long as he did was just flat out, insane. But the part that Chris Canty gets right here is that what a championship for the New York Jets would mean for a player's legacy. You saw Tom Brady, this is slightly different, but go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and win with them. And that's a team, they won a championship in 2002, but they were really struggling for a lot of years, kind of were just stuck in no man's land. But coming to another, or a legend, I guess I should say, going to another team and winning could add a lot of value to their own personal accolade. I mean, with Brady, he proved that he's able to do it without Belichick. For Peyton Manning, it was just another feather in the cap. You won one with the Colts, won one with the Broncos. Peyton had a lot of success with the Denver Broncos. He had one of the best quarterback seasons of all time in 2013. And I know there was some disappointing years, like they lost the Super Bowl that year in 2013 to the Seahawks in just an absolutely clunker of a game. There were a couple divisional round loss in 2012 to Joe Flacco and the Ravens. In 2014, they lost. Who the hell did they lose to? Did they lose to the Ravens again? I don't remember. And then 2015, they won. They won the Super Bowl, which was an okay Super Bowl. They beat the Panthers in that one, but that matters. And I think Rodgers coming out and adding another championship would only help his legacy. I don't know if you ever have a chance of surpassing Tom Brady. I don't think anyone would, but man, that stuff matters. Getting that second championship matters because unfortunately, guys like Tom Brady have skewed it where it's like if you don't have multiple championships, it's not the same. Patrick Mahomes is a multiple-time champion now. You have Eli Manning as a 2-time champion, and he's held to a different standard because of his rings that he's won. Ben Roethlisberger's won a couple, so adding that second ring really does matter, and that will help his legacy. The next audio file I have is from the New York Jets social media account. It is actually a clip of episode 2 of Flight 23. If you haven't been watching Flight 23, you are missing out. It's on the Jets YouTube channel. The Jets team and just production, social media, video, behind the scenes, all that stuff, they do an incredible job with this. This clip is talking about Will McDonald, and it kind of puts something to bed. We'll play the clip and react to it.
How about this guy, Will McDonald?
I had McDonald.
I had Will, this guy, very nice.
That's exactly how I'd say it too. Will first, Wilbert. Got it. It's a great name.
There we go. They're all talking about Will and how he was ranked as one of their highest edge rushers on the board You heard they say this guy. It's not. They don't show who they're talking about, but they put Will 1, the guy who was on the screen 2, and then Van Ness was 3 in the pecking order. But another interesting nugget is when the Jets are approaching their pick, there is a video where it shows the 3 guys that they are hoping fall to their pick at 15, and that order is Will McDonald, Michael Mayer, number 2, and number 3 was Broderick Jones. And Joe Douglas actually called the Pittsburgh Steelers jumping ahead of the New York Jets with the New England Patriots to move up and select Broderick Jones in front of them. I think they liked Jones, but not nearly as much, obviously, as they liked, Michael Mayer at tight end, and even in front of that, how much they liked Will McDonald. So I was wrong. I was incorrect with the Jets' first round and how they maneuvered things. I think that was an interesting perspective that we were able to see behind the scenes. Now, obviously, team-produced content, they could, put out the narrative or push the narrative that they want to because, they have obviously creative control and they could spin it however they want to spin it. But in this instance, I mean, it's right there. They liked Will McDonald that much, which is, I think, surprising for a lot of people, a lot of the media, and a lot of fans, myself included as one of those. I did not think that they really preferred McDonald over some of the guys who they thought maybe could have been available for the New York Jets, but they really love his motor. They love how he plays the game of football. And that was very evident in episode 2 of Flight 23. That was one of my bigger takeaways, not biggest, but one of my bigger takeaways is just how much they really view and love themselves, Will McDonald. You saw, and I've made fun of it, I don't know how many times, with the Jets talking Jets live stream over the 3 days of the NFL draft, talking about how we got Robert Saleh on the phone, calling him Game Wrecker. Hey, Game Wrecker, which is, we always got a good laugh out of, but they like him. They like him a lot. He's going to give them a ton of speed off the edge. I still don't know how much of a role he is going to have in his first year. I would anticipate that he would play similar snaps to what Jermaine Johnson did for the Jets last year. Jermaine was a rotational guy, and granted, Jermaine and Will McDonald are stylistically 2 very different players. Will McDonald has much more speed off the edge, is more of a pure pass rusher, where Jermaine is kind of your balanced guy. He can get after the passer, but it's usually a high motor sack where it's not like the bendy and the fast twitched up kind of athlete, and he's very good against the run. Both are, again, both good prospects and both good players, obviously both first round talents. For Jermaine Johnson, they're just a little style, and Will McDonald, they're just stylistically a little bit different. But yeah, obviously the Jets have made it clear how much they wanted Will McDonald, and they got their guy. So we'll see how he plays in his first year and what kind of impact he has on this New York Jets football team. Let's get to the voicemails. First up, we have Maine Jet wants to talk about Robert Saleh's ranking. All right.
Hi, Mr. O'Leary. This is Maine Jet calling. I'm calling in specifically about your film about Robert Saleh being ranked as the 7th worst coach in the NFL. Well, I'll be honest with you, I think it's just about right. He's proven nothing to New York fans, absolutely nothing. What's most important and most egregious, in my opinion, is the fact that he's gone 2 straight years losing to the Patriots. Now, that means to me that he doesn't even understand the rivalry. Okay? So I don't care whether Zach Wilson has a bad game and throws for 2 yards in the second half of a game. I really don't care about that. He should have been able to win those games. Now, I would say that year 3 is make or break year for him. He's proven one side of the ball, but he's absolutely done nothing with offense. And going forward, that's what matters. This is supposed to be a championship year. Let's see what he can do. And he has one of the best rosters in the NFL. So if he doesn't succeed this year, it totally falls on his shoulders, and he should get fired. That's my comment. Thank you, and I welcome yours in return, Mr. O'Leary. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, I appreciate the call in, Main Jet. I wasn't far off. I had him, as I said, 22 on the list, which would have been 10th worst, so a bottom 10 coach, where that list had him as a bottom 7 coach. He does have a lot to prove. Now, the Patriots thing is a little unfair because the team outside of really one position did its job in both games. And special teams also played a factor in that second game, but the defense was stellar in both of those games. Offensively, just imploded. Now, there is a ton of pressure for him to beat both of those, New England twice this year, and there is pressure and expectations. I agree with you that it is a make or break year for Robert Saleh. I would also toss in Joe Douglas in that conversation, which is, I guess, it makes sense because it kind of loops this all together with my intro and what I wanted to talk about and get into today. I didn't think it was that crazy with his, where he being ranked where he was at 7th worst. I had him at 10, so that's splitting hairs as the 10th worst instead of the 7th worst. But I'm not all the way. I'm not out on him. I'm not saying he deserved to be fired after 2 years. There are some things that he's done that I like. For instance, I think that players respect him. I think he's a well-respected head coach. I think he deserves credit for turning this defense around. And I think he deserves some credit for how he's handled the media in some instances. I think he's, a polar opposite of Adam Gase, where he's an easy guy to root for. He's a likable guy and well-respected guy. So that's a plus. But yeah, there are room for improvement. His game management has to get better. And hopefully the switch at offensive coordinator will help that. Will help the offense as well, because that's been really this team's Achilles heel. Let's go. I don't know why I couldn't get words out there. Let's close out. That was easier. Let's close out with our guy Travis from Ohio talking a little Jimmy G mess out in Vegas and why he's happy the Jets ended up with Rodgers.
Hey, man.
What's up?
Travis from Ohio. Hey, buddy. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you.
And for all the haters out there, that we got the Aaron Rodgers deal done either more expensively or quicker than people liked. Look at Jimmy G right now with a injured foot waiver. The Raiders could have jumped right in there and outbid us or driven our price up. So that's going to happen, especially in training camp when people get hurt. Like if we would have drug it on, we might as well live with it. We made it past it. We got Rodgers. He's on our team. Everybody should just live with it now. That's life. And everybody should get off Fireman Ed. I met him in that Pennington playoff loss when Doug Bryan missed his 2 field goals, and he's the nicest dude in the world, even though I don't begrudge any Patriots fans for hating him. I mean, that's just part of the rivalry. So, anyway, buddy, love you. Go Jets.
Thank you so much, Travis. I agree with you. Any negative Fireman Ed things is just way off. I don't get that at all. That was a few weeks ago when he went on the Pat McAfee show. I never understood that one. But you're so right with the Jimmy G and Aaron Rodgers thing, because could you imagine the pushback that the New York Jets would be getting right now if they signed Jimmy G with his potential injury? The Raiders could get out of this deal for them, thankfully, but they're SOL at the quarterback position. They ran Derek Carr out of town to bring in Jimmy G, and now Jimmy G might not even be good to go because guess what? An injury, which was his biggest red flag. And I heard it. He doesn't cost you draft assets. He's gonna be cheaper. He's proven that he can win. All true. I'm not saying Jimmy was an abysmal option. He was probably what? Third, fourth best option. But the reason why people were yelling for an Aaron Rodgers or a bigger swing is because of the injury history that Jimmy G had and the potential that, this could blow up. We've seen it. How many times has he missed significant time year on year? 10 games this year is what he was able to give you. He played 15 in 2021. That's good. 2020, 6. 2019, 16. Great. But then 3 in 2018. 5 in 2017. That's been his biggest issue. It's not his on-the-field play. Because when he's on the field, he's a decent quarterback. He's not elite. He's not amazing, but he's an average NFL quarterback. And you can win with him. But the injuries are a major factor in this. And now he's on the wrong side of 30, and the Raiders might be screwed. So I agree. I'm glad that the Jets don't have to deal with that. That's going to do it for us on episode 171 of Just Jets. I appreciate you hanging out with me and talking with me through the voicemail. I appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get the show on YouTube or in audio form. Once again, I'm Matt. I'll catch you next time. Go Jets.